Happy Tuesday, and boy do I have a good one for you today. This one is on perfection versus the perfect life. Now, everyone is chasing perfection, but is that robbing us of the perfect life? There's just one thing that I started thinking about last week, and it come to me on Friday. We're on our hot air balloon trip, and it's something that I really struggle to slow down with. I look at doing little bits and pieces like that as a little bit of a time waste, some from time to time. But one thing that I actually really noticed on the hot air balloon was, whilst we were on there, our hot air balloon driver, I guess you call him, our pilot, he just made life so happy. And most of the time he actually has a lot of overseas tourists. So he was said most of his days he literally has 24 people on his hot air balloon that don't understand English. So once I started talking to him, he's like, yeah, man, he's like, you know what? I just try and make my time up there as fun as possible. And he's like, obviously I'm trying to give everyone else the best time, but he's like, I'm trying to make my time up here as fun as possible. And I started thinking about it a little bit more. And this guy is someone who owns a pretty well business. He does 2 hot air balloons with 24 people in there, each thing. So he, every day he's having a fair bit of money, come in, come out, and it'd be a very high stress job. But he was just one of the most laid back characters that I've ever met in my life. And I was like, why is it that when I'm trying to do my stuff, I'm so caught up in my day, I've got to be so perfect. I'm like, everything's got to be so perfect, exactly how I want. And I really struggle to even say when I go out for lunch or anything, I go to have lunch and I sit there and I'm like, righty, I've got to eat lunch and I've got to get straight back into work. Or Tay might come in and say something to me and I'm like, I give her the answer and then I'm like, righty, is that all you need? Are you done now? And see you later sort of thing. And I just really started thinking about everything in today is, we're so caught up in this ideal of we've got to live and do everything perfect, and I think it takes away from that perfect life. So the first thing, I'm going to break this down into a couple of parts, but the first thing I wanted to talk about is why is the culture of perfection so large at the moment? And for me, growing up, it never really was a thing. The culture of perfection, I didn't think really existed that much. I can still remember when I was at school, everything was sure, I enjoyed playing footy, and it was I enjoyed playing footy to go and play footy. I never looked at playing rugby league as this art of perfection, where if I sort of look back at what I could have done better, and if I had that same mindset as probably I did today, I would have been in the gym every morning trying to put weight on, trying to get quicker, trying to do all my, get my skills better for rugby league. And it never occurred to me growing up until probably 3 or 4 years ago, when I feel social media started to play into this ideal of perfectionism, or you start following these influencers that are only showing their perfect days. And I think that is the biggest thing at the moment. So many people will show you their perfect day, where they get up, they have their ice bath, they do everything. And to be fair, I'm accustomed to that. I will only share when I'm doing stuff that I feel is oh yeah, everyone's gonna look at me and be oh, how good's that? But I don't go and then show me being in the office for 4 hours trying to do little bits and bobs that aren't that cool fancy stuff that everyone's oh wow, that's cool that Lane goes and does his office work. It's just, we all get caught up in oh, how can I show people that I can go and do 8 hours of work in 2 hours, and really just share this idea of living, being perfect from time to time. But those influencers don't then show that time where they're sitting around having to try and edit videos, or all the other time that actually does go into those videos. So I think that's one big, the rise of social media and everyone sharing their perfect life is just a massive catalyst into why we are chasing perfection so much now. And that's a really hard thing when social media is such a dangerous tool. And to be honest, I don't know how many hours of this the average person would spend on social media at the moment, but I think it's a lot. I heard a study the average person spends about 8 hours a day on their phone. And if that's true, social media would have to be about 90% of that. So let's just say the average person spends about 7 hours a day on social media, which to me is wild. But if that's true, there is 7 hours of everyone just getting filled full of lies. And then I also think the rise of this biohacking and everything at the moment is a real really adding to the culture of perfection as well. So even for me, like over literally yesterday, I just went and brought a pack of nicotine gum. And because I've started hearing about people using nicotine to focus while they're at work. And for me, I'm like, well, if that's like a free little bit of perfection for me to gain, why wouldn't I do that? But so there's stuff like that. There's like all the people like doing with caffeine around work and everything like that. Everyone's trying to like biohack their life for perfection. So the more that we start hearing about all this perfection, the more we want to do it. But I feel like the more that we chase after all this perfection, the less, I guess, there will be times where we still feel empty. I know for me, like one of my biggest ones is when I was doing my Ironman training. You get like your training layout for the week, and that there might be 14, 15, 16 sessions in there for the week that you've got to do. And on the Training Peaks app, if you do a perfect workout, it turns up green, and like your brain gets told, okay, you've got to do everything perfect throughout the whole week. But I really found that left me feeling so empty. Like for one example, like I went and done Ironman because I was like, okay, this is the next step. This is the next step of me being that perfect human. You see all the people on social media go and do it. And it just felt, for me, I'm like, all right, this is my progressive step. And I remember like there was days, like there was one really profound day where it was a sad day. And I think I had about a 5-hour bike ride by myself. And I got out the door at, I think it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. And I rode up to pretty much the sunny coast. And the whole ride, I was just there by myself, and I just like, I felt so miserable. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I putting myself through 5 hours of just, it felt like a punishment tool for me. And it's like, why am I doing this? Why am I actually going out and chasing this idea of everyone else's perfection, where for me, during those 5 hours, it's really not that ideal perfection. Like I sort of found out that I don't really love bike riding. I don't really like swimming that much, even though I wanted to try and do Ironmans. Whereas like, if I enjoy running. So it's like, why would I criticize my running when I can just do more running, a thing that I enjoy, and being around people? So a really impactful quote that I heard as well about that is discipline is powerful, but it is toxic when it's driven by fear of not being enough. So if you're disciplined in like just being yourself and going out and doing those little tasks, I think that's great. But then when it's driven by you looking at yourself and not being happy with the person that you see in the mirror, and you're always trying to chase someone down, I feel like that's when it becomes a real toxic trait. So now that we've spoken about the culture of perfection, let's just talk about the cost of perfection. So when we're always chasing perfection in our day-to-day lives, we've got to look at the stuff that we might sacrifice along the way. And one thing is, I think we sacrifice is joy, laughter, and connection. So for me, I notice my natural state is like I like to be like the Joker. I like to laugh around, have a good time. But since the last probably 3 to 4 years, when I've been trying to chase perfection in everything that I do, I've noticed that bit of myself missing a lot. And it's only until the last probably week, honestly, like the last week, I really caught myself and I was like, why do I struggle like from time to time to go out and like just enjoy myself and just laugh at something and just take the absolute piss out of what I'm doing? Whereas nearly probably 5 years ago, I would do that on the daily. Like I would literally just take the piss and have a laugh with someone and pull a joke on someone all the time. And I feel like because my life is so structured now, I know exactly what I've got to be doing all the time, that it doesn't allow any of that little inner connection for me or that laughter, which also comes down to like being spontaneous and being present. I know over like the time to time where, and a lot of people do this, it's, you get so caught up in your day-to-day life that you lose that idea of presence and also wanting to go and be spontaneous. And I feel like being spontaneous is something that it should be easy, but at the moment, I know for myself, it's extremely hard. So that's just one thing that we sacrifice in the chase of perfection. And then I also feel like a lot of people struggle with keeping sustainable for a long amount of time. And that's where the the bigger goal is like, you're going to get so much better if you do something for 10 years over like just day by day chipping away at it, getting better, rather than being perfect at something for 1 year, because you'll be perfect at something for 1 year. And you would literally just drop off the face of the earth. Once you do that year of being perfect, if you burn out and you'd never go and do it again, you look at that other person who might have been doing 75 to 80 or 90% of what you were doing, but they were enjoying that process. And if they're doing it for another 10 years, that's 10 years of 90% compounded on top of what you've done. So you only done 100%. They've done 900% over those 10 years because they've enjoyed it and learned to love the process. So it's all about thinking about how like we want to go and be perfect, but then how can we make that sustainable as well? And then one biggest thing for me is like my family and my love life is a massive thing for me. And I find when I'm chasing perfection, sometimes I forget about those that are closest to me. So I always talk about being too tired to go on a date, or like I'm like, oh, like a date's not a major thing in my life. So like, in all honesty, me and Tay have dated for 2.5 years now, and I can nearly count on both my hands the amount of times I went on like a proper nice date, because I've always said, oh, it's not something that I value, but it's really nice when we go and do it. So it's also just like coming back to that spontaneous thing of like, okay, we're going to be spontaneous tonight and go out, and we might be 1 hour later than our bedtime, but it's going to be okay. Like the whole world's not going to fall apart. And then like on all my nights out, whenever I go out to someone's birthday or an engagement or something like that, I'm always looking at the clock. I'm like, okay, if we get to bed soon, if we like try and call this in half an hour, what time am I going to get to bed? Because I've got to be up at 4:30 to go for a run. And I find that just stresses me out and takes away from that. Like that night could be a perfect night, but because I'm so worried about all the little things, it takes away from that perfect life. And then also, one thing that I know a lot of people struggle with as well is trying to relax without guilt. You might find yourself sitting down from time to time, and with social media these days, you might get caught on your phone for half an hour or whatever. But then after it, you feel like punishing yourself because you're so mad at getting caught up in that guilt of like getting caught in social media. Like this happens to me all the time. Like I'll sit down and like 5 to 10 minutes or 20 minutes might go by, and I'll look at the time and I'm like, what are you doing? Like it just makes me so mad. But even like trying to relax, like I might look at myself and go and watch TV, even though it's just like, oh, a nice and relaxing task. I really, really struggle to do that. So to round that all up, like here's some little things that I think what a perfect life looks like. So just some little notes here at the end. Habits that you enjoy that don't feel like a punishment. Going out and having fun around these habits is a major thing that's going to build them into that long-term thing that you do for enjoyment. Make sure you have a space to laugh and be yourself. Laughing and being yourself is one of the most positive things that you can ever do in your life. So the more that you do that, the better of a life you're going to live. And then being proud of yourself and trying to not be someone being proud of yourself and not trying to be someone you're not. This is one thing that we all get caught up with, is we always look at someone else and we always try and be that person. So be proud of who you are and work to be the best version of yourself from day to day. Hopefully you guys take a lot away from that and go out and live that perfect life that you want to live. Catch you guys.